Okay, welcome to the 9th B'nai Yeshurun Zoom cooking class. This week, we feature the renowned cook and baker, Rachel Schwarz, and who will be baking with yeast. She'll be demonstrating pizza, chocolate babka, and her very famous Kifli, which is a traditional Hungarian dish. As always, I want to thank Chad Cohn for his Zoom ability, expertise, and his wise counsel in helping to produce these classes. Next week, there will be no class because it is a minor fast day, the 17th of Tammuz on the Jewish calendar. You're supposed to fast from 1 hour prior to sunup till sundown, and it ushers in the 3 weeks mourning period before Tisha B'Av. An acquaintance of mine, in learning about this fast next week, asked me if the rabbis foresaw the benefit of intermittent fasting for health and weight loss. I told them I think they were more conscious of the breaking of the walls of Jerusalem in 69 CE, but you never know. In 2 weeks, Tova and I will do a combined class, socially distant by 1.1 miles. So Chad, get ready for a real experience. We're still figuring out what we're going to do. We concentrate, obviously, in these classes on cooking. But cooking is related to producing food and consuming food. Since, like myself, Rachel is an avid gardener, I thought I'd add tonight a little bit about food that we are not only baking and cooking, but that we're growing in our gardens. So, Chad, if you can roll the video of my garden.
This is my garden. Growing things are a lot like cooking things to me. And I've been growing things ever since I've been an elementary school Green Thumb Club member. So let's see what's in the garden. At the entrance here, I have some grapes growing over our little archway. Here's some snow peas climbing to the sky. Oh, look, there's a head of broccoli just about ready to savor. The eggplant are flowering, but no eggplant yet. The pumpkins are growing about everywhere. And the cucumbers are climbing to the sky too. Here's a bird of paradise plant. I'm not sure it's going to bloom this year, but it's growing magnificently. There's the spaghetti squash again, going everywhere. And here's my 10-year-old bay leaf tree, which started out as a little teeny plant. Beans are here too, both pole beans and regular green beans. And here's some peppers and some more eggplant. It is an awfully good year for the tomatoes, real hot. And these grape tomatoes should be ready soon. There's the beets and the carrots. And who could forget about the zucchini? The lettuce is about all done, just a little remnants. There's some arugula and black Simpson lettuce. And here are some herbs. So whether it's growing, cooking, or eating, food is central to our lives, and it's nice to be involved in every part of the continuum.
Okay, thanks, Chad. Now, don't forget to put your Zoom into speaker view, and any questions, please enter in the chat. At B'nai Yeshurun, Rachel Schwarz is chairman of the Chesed Committee. Chesed means loving kindness, and Rachel puts loving kindness not only into the duties that help those in need in our congregation, but also in her cooking and especially in her baking. She is what I define as an accomplished chef. Someone unafraid to take on a challenge of a new recipe or unafraid to figure out a way to make an old recipe better. As a trained architect, she approaches in a logical manner with an artistic twist her cooking and her baking. I give you my friend, Rachel Schwarz.
Now we have, let me start again. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We have 3 yeast doughs that we're going to try to get done in an hour, which is pretty ambitious. So I'm going to try to move along pretty quickly. The first thing that we're going to start with is pizza dough. And what I have here is just a tad under 1.25 cups. And the reason I say a tad under is because I did a preparatory one, and the humidity in the summertime, it's the dough is just a little too soft. So we're going to do that. I have in here, I have the yeast and a little bit of sugar. Now I happen to know that my yeast is fresh, but if you don't know that, you're going to want to proof your yeast in a little bit of warm water. And when I say proof it, what it is you're just going to wait until the yeast gets a little bit bubbly. Okay, so that takes a minute or so. In the interim, I have 4 cups of flour, a little bit of salt, and a tablespoon of oil. I'm going to add those to my mixer. The salt and the oil. And you can see already that, and because we're trying to do this in a quick time period, this is already getting a little bit bubbly. So I know my yeast is fresh. I'm going to go ahead and add that to my mixer. I'm going to pull that up. And I'm going to put that, I have the kneading hook in there, so that's going to go. It takes about 10 minutes or so for that to come together. One of the things I want to tell you about homemade pizza is it's incredibly easy to make. And once you learn how to do this, you're never going to spend $15 again for a pizza from the store, from the restaurant. It's something that I've been making for my kids since they were little. Every Sunday night we had pizza night. They got to choose what type of toppings they wanted, and you can do anything you want. You can do leftovers. You can do something from the garden when you have too much produce. You can do Mexican. You can do lox and eggs. You can put anything you want on the pizza. And I'm going to just turn this up a little bit. Now, I'm going to show you that what the dough looks like when it's finished kneading. But in the interim, I made one ahead of time, and I want to show you this. This is the dough after it's risen. And you can tell this is a little too soft. You can tell that it's ready because if you put 2 fingers in and it holds the indentation, that means that your dough is ready. So typically, while the dough is working, I like to get my toppings ready. Again,
Rachel, there's a question. What is AP flour? You mentioned
all-purpose flour. You can use bread flour, you can use all-purpose. So bread flour has a little bit more gluten, so it develops a nice texture. So my dough is coming together there really nicely, and I'm going to let that knead a little bit. Typically while the dough is kneading, I get my toppings ready. But because we're on camera, I went ahead and did this. So I'm a little bit ambitious tonight. I wanted to make 2 different types of pizza. One, a vegetable pizza with just cheese, tomato sauce, and veggies. And what I've done is I have diced and cooked. I don't know if you can see this. This is yellow pepper. And the reason I drain these, and you can see here on the mushrooms, even though I've drained them in paper towels, I've got mushrooms here as well. What we don't want is a soggy crust. So we've got mushrooms, and I've got some red onion as well. So that's going to be our toppings later on for our cheese and vegetable pizza. The second pizza I want to make is a marguerite pizza. And I have basil from my garden that I'm going to use. I've got that in a little vase so it wouldn't wilt. Well, I roasted a couple of heads. I'm only going to use one, whole garlic. So what I've done with this is I've taken this whole head of garlic, wrapped it in aluminum foil, and I put it into the oven at 350 for an hour, and it makes the house smell wonderful. And you'll see later on I'm going to put that on the pizza with a little bit of olive oil. And then I also have, for my marguerite pizza, I have some fresh tomatoes, and if you have those in the garden, come August, and fresh mozzarella. I'm going to put these aside for now. I did want to show you that typically that's what I would be doing while the dough is working. Throw my garbage away. This dough is not quite kneaded enough to let it go to rise, but I did want to show you the consistency of it so that you have an idea of what you're looking for. So you'll see it's soft, it's pliable. It reminds me of what a baby's tush might feel like. You know, it's soft, it's nice, it's not too wet, it's not too stiff. That's what you're looking for. I'm going to let that go ahead and knead a little bit longer. And I apologize for the noise, but this way we have that ready to go. When that is done, I'm going to put it into an oiled bowl and let it rise for about an hour. So in about 5 minutes, I'm going to stop that. Now, because of time constraints, we have, I made some of these doughs ahead of time. And the second dough that we're going to use is for the chocolate babka. I made my filling ahead of time. I melted chocolate chips, sugar, and oil. In the interim, this has stiffened up a little bit too much to spread. So I'm going to stick it in the microwave just for maybe 30 seconds to 45 seconds, just to loosen it up. There's going to be a lot of noise here. You guys can't see it, but the pizza dough is looking absolutely gorgeous. So, like I said, I went ahead and made my babka dough early because we don't have time to knead everything. And I have one that I made already that's baked and one that is rising. So I can show you all the different steps. But again, this is a little different dough. This is a little softer. It's enriched with fat, which the pizza dough has very little. I'm going to cut this in half. And I'm going to show you how to go ahead and roll this out so it makes it relatively easy. This piece is a little bit bigger. The recipe calls for cutting it into 3 pieces. My hands are not that big, so I typically cut it into 4. The reason is also, it's just too much babka for 2 people to eat at one time. I'm taking a little bit of flour, putting it on my board. You'll notice I have a piece of parchment paper down here, and you'll see in a minute why I am doing that. So I'm going to try to pack this into a nice little rectangle. And keep that surface floured so that your rolling pin doesn't stick too much. And what we're going to try to do is roll this out into a nice rectangle. Now, certainly, this does not have to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination, because it's going to get all rolled up and nobody's going to be the wiser. So what I'm doing is rolling this out to a nice rectangle. And let's see, it's less than 1/8 of an inch thick. There's the architect in me, but not quite a 16th. So since I'm making this a little smaller, and I'm going to stop this machine because it's starting to annoy me a little bit. So this is the pizza dough, taking out my dough hook. And again, I'm kind of going a few different things at one time. You see how nice this is? I have a bowl prepared here with a little bit of oil. I'm going to put that in here. Stuart, would you put this in the sink for me, please? And I'm going to turn it to coat. So there's oil in the bottom. And then I just turn this over, not that, the mixing bowl. And I'm going to cover it up with saran wrap or plastic wrap and let that rise in a warm spot for about an hour. So there you have it. I don't know how well you can see that. But there you have it. Now I'll put that to the side. Now I'll get back to my babka. So here I have this nice rectangle. And I'm going to just tilt this up a little bit so you can see, the lighting is good. Let's try to put this down a little bit. Maybe that'll help with the glare. There, you can see how big approximately that is. Just get that nice and stretched out. My filling has softened quite a bit. I'm going to go ahead. It should have the consistency a little bit looser than chocolate pudding. I'm just going to pour that onto the dough. And then I'm going to spread that evenly, but I'm going to keep it away from the edges. You want to divide that approximately evenly between your pieces of dough, whether you make 3 or you make 4.
Rachel, there's a question. What are the dimensions of the dough for the babka? It's kind of hard to know how big it is.
It's probably 8 by 14, something like that. It can be, it's approximate. Nobody, once it's rolled up, nobody's going to be the wiser in terms of how big it is. I'm going to get some of that goodness off of there, scrape that in. There we go. Now, in terms of this, I might not be able to hold up, Stuart, just because, well, let me see if I can. You see how that's covered and there's edges are left bare. What I'm going to do with that is I'm going to fold in the 2 edges here so the filling doesn't run out. And then I'm going to take my pastry brush. I'm just going to dab a little bit of water on the edges to help seal it up. Then using my parchment paper as a guide, I'm going to tuck that in. Using my parchment paper as a guide, I'm going to roll this, and this got a little bit too tight, so the filling is running out, of course. I'm going to roll that up. I'm going to wash my hands. I got chocolate all over them. I probably nuked that chocolate just a teensy bit too much. And then I have prepared a loaf pan. Here it is. I prepared a loaf pan with parchment paper. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that into the loaf pan. Now, I did make a little bit of a mess with this, but I'm going to turn this, double it, and then twist it as much as possible. And you know what? If the chocolate oozes out, all the better. It just makes it more yummy. So I'm going to put that into my loaf pan and pat it down. This is the messy one. I'm going to show you a much neater one that I've done. We're going to let that rise for about 30 minutes or so. I'm going to throw away this parchment paper. I like to work with extremely clean hands. I don't like having messy hands when I work. So you'll see me step off a few times to wash my hands during this, just because I want to make sure that everything that I do is clean. So I'm going to cover this up, again with some saran wrap, and we're going to let it sit for about a half an hour. All right, we're running a little late, 7:30, so at 8 o'clock this is going to go in. Here is one that has been sitting for a half an hour. You can see how well you can see that. It's risen, it's sort of doubled in bulk. I did it a little earlier when the kitchen wasn't quite so warm, so the chocolate didn't ooze out. And what I'm going to do now is take my pastry brush again. I have here 1 egg that's been beaten with about a tablespoon of water. And I'm just going to go ahead and brush that all over the babka. I'm going to show you how to put the topping on it. Now, the topping is traditional. For me, it's too much. It's overkill. And besides that, when you cut it, it makes a big mess because it's flour, sugar, and oil. And it just goes everywhere when you eat it. But this is, again, made this ahead of time. This is the texture. You want to see this? It's crumbling. It's like coarse meal. And I'm going to go ahead and just place that on top of the babka. And we're going to slightly press it down so it sticks. And if you like this, add some more. If you're not as crazy about it like me, you don't have to put a ton on. Now that's going to go in the oven. It's going to bake for almost an hour, just about an hour it takes at 350. You want to check it after a half an hour or so. If it starts to brown too quickly, you're going to want to cover it with foil. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this in the oven. I'll be right back. And just for, through the magic of television, this is what the finished product looks like. So there we've got the complete babka, the crumb topping, and the loaf. And if I were to cut it, you would see the nice chocolate swirls in between. But I think I promised this one to somebody already. I'm trying to get rid of all this stuff I'm baking.
Not so fast.
Not so fast? Oh, Stuart says not so fast. I practiced last week, so I have lots of pastry in the freezer. All right, washing my hands again. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is this kifli. The kifli, actually, it means crescent. And I think the true Hungarians made it in a way that, I just put some of this. The true Hungarians made this in crescent. So my mom, this is my mom's recipe. My mom was a Holocaust survivor. She was an excellent baker. And she got me interested in baking when I was about 5 years old. And I'm not really sure if she was so interested in getting me started in baking, or she just wanted to keep me occupied while she was doing her baking. So she would give me a little piece of dough when I was 5, and I would play with it, and I'd put sugar on, and I'd put nuts in it, and I'd roll it. It would fall on the floor. I'd pick it up and roll it again. We're not dropping anything on the floor tonight, by the way. So, you know, at a very early age, she got me interested. And quite honestly, I think there's a correlation between, I know Murray mentioned that I'm an architect, retired architect. There's a correlation, I think, between cooking and baking and architecture, where you're taking a bunch of disparate elements you put it together, it takes some creativity, and then you have this beautiful product. The difference, I think, though, with baking is that everybody loves you at the end. In architecture, there's no satisfying anybody. So what I've got here is the filling for the kifli. So this, I want to show you again, this is like coarse sand. I processed the sugar and the walnuts together. It was 4 cups of walnuts, 2 cups of sugar, and a little bit of cinnamon. And I need a, I'm going to add 2 egg whites. Now these egg whites are basically left over from the egg yolks that I did for the dough. So I'm just going to mix these in, and it gets kind of not pasty, but it gets it so that it holds the nuts together from falling out. Most of the time I do this in the food processor, but I figured I was making enough noise with all my other machines that I would just do this by hand so I could do it on camera. So you'll see in a very short period of time how this filling is going to come together. You can use your hands, certainly. That's really the best tool to do this. You can see it's starting to come together. Maybe, I don't know how well it's coming across on the Zoom, but so my mom made these kifli for every occasion. We always had kifli in the freezer growing up. She would make it all the time, but particularly for company. You know, it's a rich dough. It's got a lot of butter. And my mom never used butter because she always made everything parve. But it's got butter and it's got sour cream. You can use parve sour cream, or you can use, she would use something called the Rich's cream, that back in the day before they had all these parve products. That's what she would use, margarine.
Rachel, can you tilt the bowl a little bit so we can see the consistency?
I absolutely will. So here, I know, again, you can, can you see that it's sort of holding together. So if you see when I hold it, you see how it sort of holds together now when I squeeze it, where before it was just crumbling. So I'll just, since I got my hands in here, I'm just going to go ahead and finish this like that. And put that down here for a second. And I'm going to wash my hands again, because now I can't work with my dirty hands. All right. So I'm going to take a piece of parchment because it makes it so much easier to make these rolls. One of the things I wanted to tell you guys is for a while yeast was hard to get. What I do typically is when I can find it, is I buy a package like this at either Costco or at BJ's. I got this one at BJ's. And that's 2 pounds of yeast. Now, most people say, well, what do you do with 2 pounds of yeast? But it's like $4 or $5 for this. And then I put it into a jar. This happens to be an old cashew jar I use. And I keep it in the freezer. So I always have yeast. I know it's fresh. And, if you're making pizza for your boys every week, you can go through that and 50 pounds of flour. I'm just going to scrape off my bench here a little bit because I got some of those nuts I spilled. All right. So here, I have this kifli dough, which I made. And I'm going to show that to you. There's a little fruit fly flying around in there. So this is a very rich dough. I'm going to take the bench scraper and I'm going to cut it into about 8 pieces. Now I found that makes it a little bit easier if you sort of pre-shape it than trying to roll it out. So what we want to do is have a log. And this is a very soft dough. It's not like the pizza dough at all, because it's got the egg yolks, it's got butter, it's got sour cream in it. It's delicious. I don't know how else to say it. Now I'm just sort of flattening it a little bit with my hands, putting it on this parchment. Got my rolling pin out again. I'm going to try to roll it into a rectangle. And I can see it's a little bit softened because it is so hot in my kitchen. I've got one oven going at 500 and I've got the other one going at, well, it's a convection, so I got that one at 325, but you can imagine. So I'm rolling this out. What I'm looking for is a long strip, because what we're going to do is we're going to fill this strip. Oh, you know what I didn't get out, Stuart, was if you were above the oven, get me a cookie sheet. I thought of everything, but not always. That's fine. That's good. Yeah. Thank you. So I've got this dough here. Just put it on top of this pizza thing here that I got going on. I've got this. Let's see if you can see that. It's about 6 by 12 or so. And my mom would spread either the solo apricot filling on it or honey. So I have my solo apricot filling here. And pulled everything out. The problem is, of course, when you pull everything out, you can't find anything. So I have an offset spatula that I'm looking for, that I want to use to spread this on. If I can't find it, I'm not going to use it. I'll use something else. Do you know what the offset spatula looks like? So I'm not going to take a lot of this, just a little bit. I'm going to spread it on here. What this does is it really just helps the nuts adhere a little bit. There it is. Stuart came to the rescue. This is one of my favorite tools. I use it for cake decorating when I would ice the tops of the cakes. And you'll see I'll use it again when I spread the pizza sauce. So just putting a very thin layer of solo filling down. And then we take some of this nut mixture and we're going to spread that on top here. And I want to keep it away from the edge that I'm going to close. So,
Rachel, the recipe said to divide into 5 to 6 pieces, but you divided it into 8, or you said to
no,
divide?
I did. Did I do 8? I meant to do 6, but yeah. You know what? It all comes out in the wash. If I would have done a little bit bigger piece, it just would have been a longer strip. So, and in the interest of time, it's probably better for me to make a little smaller one. This is actually the most complicated of the doughs. So let me see if I can show this to you guys. And you see we've left an edge here. And we've left the edges there. So all I'm going to do is roll this as tightly as I can. Okay. And you can use the parchment paper if you need to as a guide, or try to tuck all of this in. I have a bad habit, I will tell you. I have a bad habit of trying to fit in way too much filling because I always think it's going to be better, you know? You think I would learn from my mistakes. I haven't. I do it over and over again. I always fill it nice and tight. So what I'm doing is I'm just this is this long snake now of dough. I'm just giving it a good roll to seal the edge. Rinse my hands again. So either with a bench scraper or a knife, you're just going to cut 1-inch sections or so here. And then what you're going to do, and here's the cross section. These are a little smaller than I typically make it because, like Chad pointed out, Chad pointed out that I cut it into 8 sections instead of 6. I'm going to cover my cookie sheet with some parchment. And this is where the interesting part comes along. So you've got this little roll. What you want to do is you want to take your finger from behind and sort of push the filling up a little bit and close it up so that it looks a little bit like a rose. Now, I think I mentioned earlier that the traditional is to make a crescent shape. That takes a lot more time. And I think because my mom worked full time and then some, they had a business. So she worked 7 days a week. I'm sorry, she worked in Shabbos 7 days a week. And my parents were in that business 16 hours a day. She wasn't there 16 hours, but they worked hard. And when she got to bake, she needed to be efficient. So we're gonna take these and make these little rosettes out of it. So I'm pushing, you can see I'm sort of pushing my finger up. And I'm gonna cut a few more. And I'm going to go ahead and do this with the rest of them. So I'm going to be baking for quite a while tonight because I have, if that was 1/8, you can see how much time this takes. You know what though, it's worth it because number one, it reminds me of growing up, my Hungarian background. I mean, my parents were Jewish. They didn't identify as Hungarian, obviously, but they were both from an area of Europe called Austria-Hungary before World War I. So they spoke Hungarian at home, but or Yiddish. But my mom was really from Romania, as was my mother-in-law, by the way. And my father was from Czechoslovakia, as was my father-in-law. So it was kind of interesting. I think Helene, my sister-in-law, is watching. Her mom and my mom were from very similar parts of the world, and so consequently made very similar foods.
Rachel, could you try holding that up to the camera as you're doing the
Yeah.
pushing? Yeah, so we can kind of see.
My finger, and the dough is pretty sticky, so you got to work kind of fast. And as I said, it's hot in the kitchen, so it's better if the dough is a little bit chilled, if possible, when it's warm like this. So I've got this roll. And I'm just like squeezing the bottom, just almost like not a tube of toothpaste, but squeezing the bottom and opening that up a little bit. And then I'll show you this on the, see if I can do this, on the cookie sheet. Can you see that? Okay. Oop, there they go. I'll rectify that right now. And again, I'm going to take my egg wash, which I have here. I'm just going to lightly brush the tops of that. Now, what that does, what the egg wash does here, two things. It provides a nice shine to the kifli, and it helps to hold it all together. So it acts as a little bit of a binder when this goes into the oven. And we don't need to do a second rising on this dough. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put these in the oven. Let me just finish off these last couple of pieces here too, so that I can clean off my board. Because then we're going to make the pizza. So do that. And these little ends, sometimes if you want to re-roll them, you can. Just the little ends that are, let's see if I find a little spot. These will rise a little bit in the oven. I'll cut that one. So here we go. So it's squeezing it, I'm sort of squeezing it out, opening it like a flower. This one's a little lopsided. But you know what? They're so good. If it's a little lopsided, nobody even cares. So I'm going to put these in the oven. I made these a little smaller. It's usually about 15 minutes. Since these are a teensy bit smaller, I'm going to try them at 12 minutes. And I'm going to I'm going to wash my hands and I'm going to set the timer for 12 minutes. Set a timer for 12 minutes. All right. So hopefully I was able to keep your attention long enough now that we can do the pizza. I have so many doughs here. I hope I can keep them all straight. Oh, this is, yeah. So this is the pizza dough that I had rising from before. It was puffed up, it puffed up again. So what I've done is I've punched it down and I'm gonna pull that and I put it back onto, I'm gonna put it onto my board. There it is. See, it's a little bit soft, but it's nice. We're making two pizzas tonight. So I'm going to cut this in half, approximately. And again, none of this is exact science. You really have, I think once you get the idea of what the dough feels like, you'll be more comfortable with it. I didn't make a very even half. Let me try that a little. I'm just going to steal a little bit from this one. No, a professional baker would probably weigh these. I'm not a professional, just a mom who did this for her kids. And when the boys were little, if it was their birthday, I would make a Valentine's shaped pizza. If it was the Browns were playing, I'd make a dog bone shaped pizza. So we would have fun with it. And like I said before, the boys got to really pick whatever they wanted. And then once I had grandchildren, the grandchildren got to choose what they wanted. So just gonna flour the board. And I have in my oven, you can't see that, in my oven I have a pizza stone heating up at 500 degrees. I also have, I only have one pizza stone. So what I use is I have a griddle that fits over 2 burners. And I like to use that as well. The reason I like that is because it heats up really well. And what you're really trying to do is get a crispy crust. And if you preheat that, you'll get that crispy crust. Now, I will tell you that a lot of people think you can make a pizza on a cookie sheet. You can do it in a cast iron pan. You can do it on a pizza pan. I would not use a cookie sheet. The reason is that when you put a cookie sheet into a 500-degree oven, it starts to warp. And you're not going to get that crispy crust that you would if you have a pizza stone. So this is, the first one we're going to make round. I don't know how to flip it or any of that, but we're just going to take it, and between the rolling pin in our hands, we're going to turn it and form it into an approximate circle. And nowadays, everything is artisan. So the less perfect it is, almost the better. Try to get an even circle. And this one looks a little bit like some country, maybe the country of Chad, I don't know. All right, now pick this up and try to get it a little bit more uniform. So I can stretch it with my hands, or I can stretch it with the rolling pin. So it's almost a circle. Let's get that a little bit bigger. You can also use, if you're interested, you can use whole wheat flour. I would not do more than 1 cup of whole wheat flour. I wouldn't substitute more than 1 cup of it to, in the 4 cups. And then if you have it, you can add a tablespoon of vital wheat gluten to it. All right, my producer is telling me that I have 10 minutes. We started late, I'm gonna get a few extra minutes. So I put it on my pizza pan. And I'm gonna go ahead and dress it. So I just have some Trader Joe's sauce. This is nothing fancy. I'm gonna rinse off my offset spatula. You know the problem with the video. I recently read in the New York Times that instead of putting the sauce directly onto the pizza, that you should put the cheese down first. I haven't tried that. Any of you try that and like that, let me know. And I'll try it. So all I've done here is I've put an even layer of tomato sauce on here. We've seen that a million times in the restaurants. And I've got some my cheese. And again, you can put on whatever kind of cheese you like to. If you don't like mozzarella, just so happens that they have kosher mozzarella at Costco. So I do like using that. And
what was that roller? What is that roller that you use with that?
this?
Yeah, that thing.
It's my rolling pin.
Yeah, it's just a regular rolling pin.
Yeah, you know, there are
commercial.
all kinds of rolling pins too. You know, those of you who know me know that I had a very short career at Sur La Table, and there are all different kinds of rolling pins. There's ones that are the same size all the way across. There's tapered ones. They all do different things. I never really got into different ones. Although I will tell you, Stuart just bought me this one. I don't know if you can see. I haven't used it yet. It's got little kitties on it. See that? So I'm gonna make some cookies with kitties on it. Yeah, that's just a regular rolling pin. So I'm gonna go ahead and I've topped this with the cheese. Got my yellow peppers. You want to keep those out more towards the outside of the pizza, because they get to be into the middle too much, then it gets soggy. And there's nothing worse than a soggy pizza. So I'm going to putting my mushrooms on. For those of you who are interested, Eve's, YVES, makes a vegetarian pepperoni. You know, I don't know, there's a lot of people who say don't eat even fake pepperoni, because the idea is to not to eat pork products or anything that's like pork products. But for me, it works. If you like it, it works. I'm gonna rinse my hands. I'm gonna throw this in the oven, and then we're gonna start on the second pizza. So this is my pizza paddle. You won't be able to see, but I'm gonna go over to the oven. And
Did you tilt that to the camera? Can you tilt it to the camera a little bit so we can see?
Sure, I think so. Let's see. Let's see if my director can help me. Let's see. Is the what do you call it again? Okay, so here's my oven, and here's my pizza stone, and I'm just going to slide that in like that. I like using the parchment. It just makes it so much easier. And we have to put that in for about 10 minutes. So you can put it right down. I need somebody to time 10 minutes for me. Can somebody time 10 minutes? Let me know, because I got 2 timers going already, and all right.
I'll time it for you.
Okay, thanks. The second pizza, and I'll try to do this relatively quickly. That is on that square griddle. And what I've done is I've taken my, thank you, Katie. I've taken my parchment and I've just measured it so that it's the same size as my, wait, that's the one. Oh my goodness. I got too many doughs going. Each straight, which one's which? That's the Kifli dough. This is the pizza dough. Okay, so we're gonna, that would be funny if I made it with a pizza that tasted like sweets. All right, so this is gonna be a rectangular dough. I'm just covering this up a little bit. Sort of pat it out. into the shape. And then I'm gonna roll that. I know we're running short on time. I want to show you the pizza when it's all done. And invite you over to have a socially distanced piece with us. Oh, by the way, if anybody wants some pastry, send me an email. I'll leave it on the front porch for you. Because we have, you know, I'm making a lot. Helene, that goes for you too, out in California. Try to get this as, I'm trying to do this quickly since I know we're running a little short on time. But I can't be blamed for, can I? What are you doing, honey?
Right, just down there so we can see
Oh,
what
you can
you're
see
doing.
what I'm doing? All right. So this is not perfectly shaped, but in the interest of time, I'm going to show you that garlic that I roasted earlier today. See, one of the things with yeast dough is it, when you, once you roll it, it bounces back a little bit. Paste in the sink. I just clean up some of my little bit of mess here. And so that head of garlic that I showed you earlier, I want to show you how to squeeze that out. So it's nice and soft. That's all caramelized. It just comes out. Just squeeze that out.
Can you lift up the dough so we can see it?
How's that? Put my, I need one of those that they have in the cooking schools, right? The mirrors. So I'm squeezing out all that deliciousness onto my, it landed in the wrong spot. Don't tell anybody. All right, my timer is going off. It means my piccolo is probably done. Let me take a look at them. Like I said, this is pretty ambitious to try to do 3 things at one time. Now they're not quite done, so we're gonna let it go for another 3 minutes or so. I wanna show you what that looks like when it comes out. So I've got some olive oil. Just gonna take a little bit of olive oil. And I'm going to take and make a paste sort of as I go with this. I'm trying to spread as much of that delicious garlic. Of course, my other timer is going off now too. That's the Babka, which is fine. We know that that can hold for a few seconds. So you can see I've spread this garlic paste all over. My hands, I'm going to smell wonderful for a few days. No vampires will bother me. Okay, so I've got my tomatoes and my fresh mozzarella. I'm just going to put those tomatoes around the outside. If you can see that, I'll lift it up when, let's see, maybe I could tilt this. Does that work? I think that works. I'll put these tomatoes all around. And when this comes out of the oven, I have that fresh basil. I'm going to julienne or chiffonade and put this fresh mozzarella. This also, you can get this at Costco, comes in logs. It's got a K on it, so it's Del Gioso, I think is the name of it. Not exactly if I got that exactly right, but I'm going to go ahead and just put those, and I'm going to stick this in the oven. It's going to bake for about 10 to 12 minutes as well.
If you can take it.
A little bit more? Okay. Can you see that, guys? It looks good now. It's going to look even better in a minute. Okay. Now I'm gonna, Stuart, if you can, go over to the lower oven, and we're gonna look at what's going on in my lower oven. So I've got, let's see, can you look at this? We've got the babka that I did this. You can see that it's starting to brown, but it's not browning too quickly. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of aluminum foil and just cover it for the next half an hour so that it doesn't burn, because that topping is a little bit susceptible. And then here are, let's see if I can burn myself. These are the Kifli. We could use a few more. And that's the thing, is you got to really kind of look at your shoelaces on top speed. You got to kind of look at it. So now I'm going to take this pizza, and I'm going to put this one in the oven as well. So this is the marguerite. Oh, that one is looking pretty good. Vegetable. So can you show this too? So here we got,
Okay.
there's the marguerite, and you can see this is going along pretty well too. Put that in there. And I'm going to set this for 10 minutes. Usually it takes a little longer than 10, but I don't want it to burn. Okay. So, I thought now we would take some questions if there are any. And as we're waiting for a few things to come out. Would you like me to cut that babka to show you what it looks like on the inside?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to do that just so we can get a little sip of
No
water.
drinking on the job.
Yeah, I know.
I've allowed the participants to unmute themselves. So if anybody has some questions, just unmute yourself and
You can talk. Hey, how's that, Marie? I'm going to use a bread knife.
Wait, you already said you have too much dough, so you don't need any pay.
So here we have, this is the one I made earlier this afternoon. I'm
Okay.
just going to cut it. Oh man, it looks good.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
Take a look at that. Who wants a taste?
Send some my way.
Was
Yeah.
that me?
That's, yeah.
No. All right, so that, I'm gonna have 3 or 4 of those. And then I made some last week as a test, so I have some in the freezer as well.
Okay.
Oh, let me wash my hands again. And I'm gonna go ahead and put that on a plate. Sure, would you like a piece?
Oh, that would be so sweet. Thank you.
Maybe I'll give Stuart a piece, although we haven't had dinner yet. Since I was making pizza, I thought we'd eat pizza tonight for dinner. So I'll
Oh,
leave that-
perfect.
Perfect timing, right? I'll leave that
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
All right,
Oh,
I might
nice.
as well clean my board off. I might as well continue with the kifli. Now, while I wait for those 2 things, I'm guessing.
Rachel, it's about 10 minutes now on the,
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, we got a couple more. All right.
Yep, 17 seconds to go.
All right. I want to show you the kifli are just about done. They took about 15 minutes. Let me see if I can tilt this up. I gotta tell you, the smell in here is absolutely magnificent. And you see that? Oop, there they go. I could put it on a cooling rack, but I might take the, I'll take this I'll take this over here so you can see it this way. Let's see, can you see that, guys?
Yeah. Oh, yum.
Yeah, it smells pretty darn good. And that second babka is just about ready to go into the oven. The half an hour has gone by.
Rachel, there's a question about the tomatoes that you use. What kind do you use so that the pizza doesn't get soggy?
Typically, you would use a Roma tomato. I don't have any Roma tomatoes right now, and I'm getting my deliveries every 2 weeks, like a lot of people who are self-quarantining. So I got some just regular, just like a beefsteak slicing tomato. And that's what I use. And what I did is I put it on paper towels to get out some of that extra liquid. So I'm gonna put this is the Babka number 3. Is gonna go into the oven. So I've just coated it with egg whites.
Egg
So that's
white.
egg wash.
Not egg- what's it say?
And I'm gonna put some of that topping on that we talked about earlier. And I'm gonna push that down on top so that it sticks to it. You can see that makes a lot of babka. So if you're planning a party, call me, because I'm bored. Can't go anywhere, can't do anything but bake.
Works for me.
Yeah, what Stuart says it works for him. So there's the babka number 3. That's gonna go into the oven now. And I'm gonna time for a half an hour. And our pizza, I just want to put my phone on with the timer because I'm a little distracted. Set the timer for 30 minutes. All right, so our first pizza is ready. I'm gonna go get it. You guys ready? Got my handy dandy pizza cutter. And I'm gonna get my pizza paddle.
Chad, you gotta show the pizza,
All right, this is hot.
not me.
So take a look, guys. This is hot. I want to burn myself. Can you see it? Whoop. Sliding off the pizza paddle. And it smells, again, wonderful. So I want you to, Stuart, hold it in closely. I want him to hear the crunch. Can you hear that? I don't know if you can hear that over the Zoom call.
Chad, I'm just seeing me.
Can you hear the crunch of the crust?
Yes, I heard the crunch. I can smell it too.
Oh, it smells wonderful.
Yeah.
Can you hear my stomach?
Oh, Stuart says his stomach is growling. So anybody in the neighborhood, in Solon, hungry?
Well, you can, do you deliver?
No, I don't.
Damn. Tips are good these days.
So here I'm going to use my handy dandy offset spatula again. And I'm going to show you.
Can you show the bottom of it? Sort of,
Yeah.
kind of? Oh, yeah, that works. That works. That's- Okay, thank you.
There is a slice of homemade mushroom, red onion, and yellow pepper pizza, which I am going to
I'll
give
take
to Stuart. Says he'll take that. Just be careful because there's hot cheese. And the other will be coming any minute.
Did you go on the parchment paper in the oven, or did you slide it off the parchment?
I put it, when I put it into the oven, I had the parchment paper on there. The parchment paper is still in the oven right now. So I went with the pizza paddle underneath. The next one I won't be able to do because it's too much hot. I'm going to actually bring out, let's see, Stuart, how is it? You have to say it's good. He's giving me the 2 thumbs up. The next one, let's see, I'm going to pull that out with its, while I'm waiting for them, take my basil from my garden. I've washed this already, so not to worry. And I'm going to just take the leaves off the stems. I'm going to roll it. I'm going to do a chiffonade. Chiffonade is just a diagonal cut. And I think my thing is a little too close, so you can't see what I'm doing, but
Yep, we can't see it.
so here I've got this basil.
Ah,
cut, and I'm gonna put that on top of the, just put that over here for now. And that one should be ready, just about ready. Let me take a look. Not quite. All right, that one's not quite ready. We want that cheese to be nice and bubbly on top, and the crust to be, the bottom to be.
Do you leave the pizza on the parchment paper in the oven?
I do. It makes it easier to clean up, and it makes it easier to move in and out. I know that the professionals don't do that. They put a little cornmeal underneath. I've tried that, transferring the pizza dough with all the toppings that are honey. I just haven't had success with that. It starts to bunch up. So I instead I use the parchment. I found that really well, and you know, it maybe it's not, you know, traditional, but it works for me, and I think it'll work for you guys as well. So I just took the pizza stone out because with the two pizzas, it absorbs a lot of that heat.
Rachel,
All right,
thanks so
can I
much.
interrupt you for a sec? Go ahead, Chad.
Well, I was just going to say, I was going to spotlight back to Murray for now. And just because we're running a little bit long on time, but
Yeah.
I'll keep the meeting open if people want to come back and have questions. But
Yeah, we should be wrapping things up pretty soon. So there's a lot of things I learned tonight. Again, just like when Hetty did it, I never heard like a Jewish kind of thing talking about it. It has risen. And then I found out about Rachel that she likes clean hands, things I didn't know. Also, you mentioned that you like to hold the nuts from falling out. I don't know exactly what that means. And you have a bad habit of sticking way too much in.
I do.
You know, that's something, and
Not going near there.
it holds together when you squeeze it. And of course, you did say you have too much dough, so you're not going to get any remuneration for this. So before we conclude, I just want to say again that we're not having a class next week because of the fast day, and then we'll pick up in a few weeks, and then we may take a little hiatus after that. So, okay, so back to you, Rachel, if you want to finish. Thank you very much.
I'd like to,
We'll leave
if
things
possible, if we can just wait a couple more minutes for the Marguerite pizza to be done. We did try to accomplish a lot, and we got off to kind of a shaky start there, but you know, I think we accomplished a lot in a short period of time. Let me just look here. Come on. Why is it that it doesn't want to bake when you want it to bake? So, are there any other questions?
There.
What's the meaning of life?
Thank you.
Well, I can tell you, let's see, I can tell you that if you bake and you give away your baking, you can make a lot of people happy. So that's one of the messages that I can tell you. And quarantine baking is wonderful because there's nothing else to do. And you can take things over to your friend and drop.
There was a question, can you freeze yeast? Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, that's what I do. I actually take this big package, I empty it into my jar, and I keep it in my door of my freezer. So this is just a jar that I have from, you know, some cashews that I ate all in one day. And I keep it in the freezer about a year or so. Yeah, the other thing that you can freeze is, and I'm going to do that, is the pizza dough that we made tonight. See, now that has, Murray, for you, that has risen. Okay, that's the one that we made tonight.
Good.
I'm going to punch that down, and I'm going to freeze this dough. So when I don't feel like you can see how that looks. And that's, and I'll cut this into 2 pieces. I'll put it in the freezer. And then when I want to make pizza, if I only want to make 1 pizza, I can take it out, let it defrost in the fridge for a while, and then keep it at room temperature for an hour or 2, depending on how warm the kitchen is. Roll that out, and you're ready. You're good to go. Just like you know, just
Okay,
like.
there's another question. Can you use apricot jam instead of solo filling?
Yeah. You can use apricot jam. Last week when I was doing my practice, I didn't have the solo filling. You can also use honey. I didn't have the solo filling because of the quarantine thing, you know, we just didn't have it. So I used raspberry and it came fine. I just happen to like the way it looks. We're just about done on the other pizza. It looks like probably put too much cheese on there.
And this is for dessert.
Oh yeah, it's for dessert, right? So who's coming over? Let's see, Marcy. What did Marcy say?
Do the Kifli and the Babka freeze well after?
Absolutely,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely. In fact, there's no way that I could eat all this by myself, which is why my freezer is now full of pastry. So yes, it freezes well. And what I like to do, Marcy, is I'll put maybe 6 or 8 into a small Ziploc. That way I take that out and I have it for a day or 2. And you can microwave it a little bit, warm it up a little bit, and it's just like it came out of the oven. So it's wonderful. I wouldn't over microwave it, just enough to, you know, like 10 seconds a cookie or 12 seconds, not too much. I'm gonna pull out that other pizza because I know you guys are waiting. So, oops. All right. Just about ready. Oh, I put this here. I'm going to show this to you. I close the oven door. Pumping out 500 degrees. Here, don't touch it. Yeah, I was going to say don't touch that. So here is, oh, there it goes. It'd be easier to lift up the, you see that? And I'm going to take my basil and I'm going to sprinkle it on top for a beautiful presentation. And then I'm going to take my pizza cutter. This you'll probably hear too. You ready? You can hear the crunch. Actually, I could take this off and put it onto the cutting board.
Yep, we heard it crunch. It worked.
It's very hot. I would recommend you have good mitts when you do this. You hear that crunch?
Yep.
And it's like an artisan pizza. It's not round, it's not square.
It's oval.
And then you want to see the underside of it. So let's see, what does that look like?
Ooh, yummy.
Oh, looks good.
Yeah.
Bring it over, Stu. You're gonna get it.
Someone asked if you use the pizza stone.
On this one I used, I don't have 2 pizza stones. I use this, I'll show you what this is. This is a
Griddle.
goes over, oh, Stuart wants his pizza. He's in there getting it. All right, I use this, like a 2-sided grill that I have, because it holds the heat. You can use anything cast iron. You can use, like I said, a pizza can, but cookie sheet, not so much. So that's it for me, guys. If you have any other questions.
Good job, Rachel.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Seriously, if you want some pastry, send me an email. I'll send you my address and I'll leave it for you on my front porch.
Oh, now you're teasing me again.
Well,
Is that lean or lean?
Okay.
It's, I'd get there if I could. Oh, boy. That was great, Rachel. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
All right.
See you guys in 2 weeks.
In a bit.
Great
Bye,
job.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Happy baking.